I want us to give a round of applause as we welcome Kelechi Deka to the stage and Dr. Sam Amadi to the stage. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for them as they come up. They will be leading the next stage of discussion while we continue our interaction. Now, the next person to come up and speak to us is Dr. Sam Amadi. He will be talking about the pains and gains of Monday sit at home in the Southeast.
Thank you so much. Well, the governor's rep has gone, but there are governor's people. So governor's people, ekele mono. And Father, you're welcome, sir. Let me thank Nze and his team for this great idea. The quality of conversation has been extremely valuable, intelligent, and wise. So again, Igbo conversations. And I like the point about Izukama and Neji. Two things. Izu is important. And of course, the best place to have conversation is among brothers. Because it may be hard, it may be, but because you are bound by brotherhood, blood. Even if your brother doesn't like the truth, he will not kill you. He will accept the truth or think through it or disagree. And again, let me make this point. I think it was Governor Trudeau who made it this morning, I think, when we were with him. And that you sit down. They may not agree with you. And so disagreement is not confrontation. I would like by also making some corrections, just like he did. First, it is true that we didn't start knowing ourselves in 1914. But it's also true that Nigeria was constructed on weak social capital. Like Father said, by 1900, maybe when Northern Nigeria was unified and Six Father went to Zungeru following the train, that does not establish very strong social bond for nationhood. In fact, Nigeria's first, second, or third, Arthur Richardson wrote many years ago in his diary. He said that the real truth about the amalgamation is that it never happened. It didn't happen. Why? Lugard was more concerned with going to Liverpool for weekends and didn't want too much bureaucracy. The work of integration is very hard, and the model from India they borrowed. So it wasn't the fault of Fulani or Yoruba, it was a fact that Nigeria was constructed first from business treaty between Ishekiri leaders and traders from Portugal and others. They mutated into a franchise by Royal Nigeria Company. And when there was a report that that franchise failed and exploitation, the British government bought over that franchise. So Nigerian colonization was half-hearted. I planned very well. It moved from trade, bilateral, to colonies. In fact, at a point, Lagos was administered from Accra. Lagos colony was administered from Accra. And he heard about Calabar being the first capital. So what am I trying to say because of time? I'm trying to say that Nsobanyere as a country is real and need to be seen as real and therefore solved. It's not necessarily Igbo problem or Yoruba or Fulani. It's a problem of historical contingents, and you see it across Africa. It's not for nothing that those countries are facing almost similar crises we are facing. If you go to Cameroon and the struggle, so we should have proper sociological and historical perspective. The second point I want to say before I turn to the modest at home is that that there is no cause for action. It's not totally true that we suffer nothing. Now, let me put, why did I say so? And the last person talked about a little bit about it. Because of Nigeria's crisis of formation, the Igbos inevitably somehow became victims. If you read Chinua Soyinka's The Man Died, he lamented that he was in prison with northern soldiers who were accused of killing Igbos. And he was shocked how they were treated with royalty. That was The Man Died, written many years ago. And that the problem was that the rule of law failed to protect Igbos who are Nigerians. Gigokwa, this guy who wrote a book about Biafra, Untold Story, New York Times reported vividly what happened in Kano Airport, where the plane landed and the soldiers gone and shot every Igbo man. So really, it's not historical to say there was no Igbo problem. There is. The question is, how do we understand it and respond to it? So the Civil War was not one kind of nonsense. It was a failure of the Nigerian state to address a problem using rule of law. In 2009, I was a guest speaker at the U.S. Holocaust Museum on a global program called Genocides That Did Not Happen, because the guys didn't want to classify it as genocide. And one of the points, my paper is still there. If you go to New York Social Science Review website, you see that paper, Elite Dissension and the Making of Biafra. My argument was very simple. It was that the elites could not face the fact that they have to treat every Nigerian as citizen and use rule of law to deal with anybody that created the crisis. Of course, lack of majority, youthful exuberance, populism, all came together and created a problem. That's still what happened with IPOB and MASOP.
If that land is not from pine leaf, take your leave. Obulu na we choigo. Obulu no siro na pine leaf estate and the properties. Wow.
I used to be advisor to Foreign Affairs, Joe Madeku, and each time we travel all over the world, we see Nigerians diaspora talking about their own sense of Igbo persecution. So when it became a crisis, the blame, for me, goes mostly to Igbo leaders at home. The Igbo Governors Forum set up the Omahe's Committee on Security. We are all part of that membership. Omahe brother has to resign because his own senior brother as governor did not support what they're doing. So there is a sense in which, and I told the governor, I agreed, we need to have authentic leaders who are responding to authentic concern of their people. You might not do what they say you should do, but you should show that you understand what they're going through. And I'll give an example, real example. At the time, MNA, there was a report that 21 youths were killed who claimed they were doing exercise. They said they are IPOB. I don't know. I was not there. But I wrote to the governor. I said, Governor, trigger your power, judicial inquiry. Set up a judicial inquiry to find out what actually happened. The governor said, you're not from Enugu State, we don't care. We went to court. I went to Federal High Court. I said, governor has a power and should be compared. The court ruled that the governor of Enugu State, Buruburu, should investigate the death of 21 youths. He refused. They went to Court of Appeal. Now, these are the excuses that these other guys use to create crisis. Why? Because the state fails to live up to its responsibility. So if you're a governor and you do an inquiry, and the inquiry tells you that these people were killed for nothing, you are doing your job. So I want us to go out not having the sense that this crisis we are facing today is a culmination of failure of leadership, failure to protect citizens, failure to respond to their concern. Then people who have other interests leverage on that failure and cause problem. That was what happened in 1967. That's what happened again. The state fails to protect citizens, then people take advantage of that failure and led citizens to actions that were not properly thought about. Now let's look at the sit at home. And again, I totally disagree. I was, as a human rights fighter, I fought for everybody, whether you are IPOB or not. But when they started with ECN, I was clear that I oppose it. Why? You cannot have a private militia to solve a problem. If there is a problem, assuming there is a real problem, I'm not sure there's a real problem of Fulani invasion. There could be instances of clashes that you need strong state to protect communities. I mean, that's very clear. But even if there was that problem, it's the government in Southeast that should design a response. Not few individuals who now use an opportunity and create an army. That's where we got it wrong. And everything that happened afterwards was a failure of both governors to respond and failure of the behavior of private actors. And then, of course, the elites were in denials and were not able to come out and say, this is a red line, don't cross it. Why? Because of narratives. So similar thing is happening in Southwest. Nobody is arresting them. In the North, nobody. So we now say, why should you, even if those people are doing harm to our economic value, why would anybody say, don't go to school on a Monday? Why would anybody say, don't go to work on a Monday? That is self-inflicted harm. It was avoidable. It took, some people estimate about 20 billion lives in the Southeast. And I agree with you that it was useless because even if we shut down the Southeast, Nigeria will not shut down. So it was also failure to, the people who don't know anything took over leadership. Now ask yourself, very important, why would people held, I went to speak at the University, law faculty, professors were there. And I was speaking after I finished, the now VC, the man who is VC now, Dean then law, took over the microphone. I said, Sam, you are speaking grammar. Now the Kano has finished. I mean, this is professors of law quoting. They see more credibility and authenticity within the Kano than with Sam Amade. And even with their own. These are, I'm not talking about Sam, professor, Dean, now VC. Not only the whole hall, lawyers. I'm not talking about. So what does that tell us? It means that a society where the intellectuals, the wise ones, have no trust with the people. The bad ones, the miscreants, have more trust with the people. Something is missing. And what is missing is elitism. We have to connect back to our people. We have to be authentic. And let me make this point, it's very important. I like what people are doing, but there's two errors the Igbos must avoid. One, the error that Nnamdi Kanu them of belligerency is an error, we shouldn't go there. The error of subservience, we shouldn't go there. You cannot tell Igbos that they should not vie for the biggest office in Lagos because they are not Yoruba people. That's an error. The idea of common citizenship is that we are all citizens of Nigeria. We can't be less citizen in Sokoto. And again, we must distinguish between cultural rights and legal rights. You say, it was na Nnewi. I cannot go to Nnewi and want to sit on other council. But if I'm a Yoruba man and I buy a land and I have a business and I'm popular and the people say they want to elect a councillor, I have a right to veer. And the people have a right to choose me or not. So we must distinguish between the claim of cultural rights in a community and the claim of citizenship. Any Igbo man who goes to be struggling with Oba of Lagos over cultural rights is doing wrong. But an Igbo man who has built his business, who says, I want to represent Apapa, has a right. So let young Igbos not go out with this timorous spirit of saying we have to tiptoe to avoid backlash. That will end us second-class citizens forever. We should be wise, we should be respectful, we should be tolerant, we should be show discretion, but we must be assertive, we must be clear that we are part of Nigeria. It doesn't make sense to ask for integration and tell people not to feel belonging to where they want to integrate. We believe in one Nigeria. It's a Nigeria that's fair to all, a Nigeria that's open to all, a Nigeria where our children, my daughter, I feel bad that they feel she left school, made good grades, but she feels that, Daddy, here I can't get a job. Or my fellow Fulani classmate will get a job, but I won't get. That's the narrative we should change from our children. We tell them that you have a right to get job to NNPC. The same way a Fulani or Yoruba or a job person has the same right. So I want to end on this note that it was wrong, it was evil to subject Southeast to Monday sit at home. We lost human capital. We lost economic value. Even our education, maybe we should investigate whether outcomes in WAEC have been affected by that degradation. And it was senseless. It didn't amount to any strategy. It didn't lead to any victory over Nigeria. It's like stupid people digging hole and jumping in and digging and going down. But what I agree is that no Igbo youth. Today, it pains me there are people who are in prison, who were picked up, and courts have given order, and they can't be released. Look, I said on Twitter, I fought for Kensaro. I was a lawyer to Kensaro. We were with Ganifa with me. I took the case of, I'll show that now. I took the case of Zamfara, the first person who took the case of Sharia, to High Court Guzo, me and Olisa Bakoba. I fought Odi when they were attacked. Why should I not fight for Igbo youths in Southeast? Why is it less Nigerian to fight for Igbo youths who are attacked? Why should I be a great Nigerian hero fighting for Southwest, fighting Ogoni, but I can't fight for our people? So my plea is, we must be, I like this idea of integration, but we're going to go there like Zeke went to, the first Zeke, the first Namde. He didn't go there as an inferior. He went to Lagos, sat for election, built the newspaper in Lagos, behaved as a Nigerian, even speak Yoruba, but was an Igbo man. That's the spirit that we need of Igbo youths. Go forth, aspire, build, explore, but don't be an inferior Nigerian. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sam Amadi. There is so much to take away from here. There is a need for the elites to return to discussing and planning and structuring the development of the people. Otherwise, we'll create a gap that will be filled with unintelligent people and the masses. The Monday sit at home was evil and unstrategic and a self-sabotage. And the conversation for Igbo people must be holistic. Thank you very much. Now,
it's election season again. Dear esteemed political candidates, are you aware that a good media visibility and advert can help boost your chances of winning? What are you waiting for? BAM Interview is offering you this campaign space to tell Igbo why they should vote for you. Contact us today with the numbers on your screen.
Before we move in, I want to give our next speaker, Kelechi Deka, the floor to come up and talk to us. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for Kelechi Deka.
I thank you all for being able to make it here today. And like Dr. Sam Amadi did say, it's not just about the crowd. I mean, it's what you take away from the crowd. If you've had the opportunity to follow my writings, the basic fact I always like to portray is that two truths can coexist. And that's also a fact we need to highlight whenever we are talking about the Igbo question. And you're talking about marginalization, whether it is imagined or not. You know, I had a debate, a very long debate with you on the issue of marginalization. Let me give you certain instances about it. Yes, there was marginalization. Fact. There is marginalization. Until you understand what is called transgenerational trauma, you won't understand why. Every time there is a new prime minister in Japan, he goes to the Shinto shrine to worship. And anytime the prime minister, a new prime minister of Japan goes to Shinto shrine to worship, there is protest in China and in South Korea. Why? But this is something that happened over 70 years ago. There is transgenerational trauma. The fact that you did not witness the war, you were born after the war. I was born 10 months after the war. But that does not mean that the war did not affect me. If you study epigenetics, you will understand that a stressed sperm of a man can impregnate a woman, and the stress can pass through that man to the unborn baby. And that unborn baby can internalize that stress and take it to the next generation. So if my father was stressed during the war, let me tell you about the theory of the returning soldier. The theory of the returning soldier said that after every war, especially a major war where a lot of men were killed, the next set of babies that's going to be born, normally nature designed it in such a way that there is always 105 male babies to 100 female babies, because male die more than females, and because the male baby is more fragile than the female baby, even right from when they were in the womb. So nature designed it in such a way that more male babies will always be born than female babies. And because when baby boys start growing up, baby boys take more risk, they take more stupid risk, men also take more stupid risk, and men also don't take care of their health. They don't go to the doctor until they're about to die. If you tell a woman that there's a problem with you, don't do this thing, she will not do it. But if you tell a man, don't do this, there's a health problem, he will tell you one thing will always kill a man. You see that kind of thing? So nature designed it. But there is a shift, which I have studied, and also some experts have studied it, in different wars. Whenever there is a war, the society that is most affected by that war, that shift moved from 105 babies to 105 baby boys to 100 baby girls to 109 baby boys to 100 baby girls. It is called the returning soldier syndrome, which is that nature is trying to make up for the number of men that were killed during the war. When you think about this thing, it looks so esoteric, but they're not esoteric. They're basic epigenetics. So what happened is that after wars, people suffer. All those young kids that suffered kwashiorkor, you saw their picture and you say, how did these people survive? It doesn't just go away because they just survived, they started eating, they just survived. It affected their brain. It causes stunted growth. And whatever causes stunted growth also causes stunted mental development. If we had the opportunity that every child that experienced the Biafran War, every child that was from 3 years to 6 years that experienced the Biafran War, if we had the financial wherewithal to pass them through a lot of psychological evaluation, you will find out that there is something missing intellectually in their brain formation. And this thing can last up to an entire generation. You see, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. That you did not see it does not mean that it is not there. What means that you did not see it based on the parameters of your searching. So when you talk about the effects of Biafran War, you know, I'm moving out from even the physical marginalization. Immediately after the war, they launched the three RCs, right? You know, in our argument, I highlighted some of the things that even when they launched the three RCs, there was no reconstruction in the area where the theater of the war took place. But the reconstruction and building of new bridges were taking place in Lagos. Goswell Akpabio, in one of his interviews, highlighted the fact that in Eastern Nigeria, no reconstruction took place in Eastern Nigeria. And Eastern Nigeria was the theater of the war. But the money raised for the 3R was focused in developing Lagos. That is marginalization. Second, in 1971, the federal government, while you're talking about reconstruction, rehabilitation, and reconciliation, the federal government launched Decree 46. Go and check Decree 46, which is a Public Officers Act. What did the Public Officers Act state? It stated that anybody who were part of the Biafra, who came from Eastern Nigeria and were part of the Biafra, will not be absorbed back into the federal civil service. After 5 years, then they moved it that they will be absorbed based on dropping in up to 4 ranks. That decree, unfortunately, and people didn't take notice of it, that decree was on until 2000. That was when Obasanjo abrogated that decree. And when Obasanjo abrogated that decree, that was when they started paying pension to some of those former Biafran police officers. Those people that used to stay at Oji River Bridge that time, they started paying pension. This thing lasted for 40 years. So how can you quantify the impact of such a decree or such a law in a family for 40 years? When you start thinking of what could have been, do you know how many men, how many families we are not able to take care of themselves for this, for 40 years? So when we look at what happened, we also fail to look at what could have happened if what happened did not happen. That's when you bring all these things together, then you understand some of these things. Apart from that, they followed it up with the indigenization decree. The indigenization decree meant that they nationalized all the big corporations in Nigeria. As at the time they nationalized all the big corporations in Nigeria and said that the public can buy shares, the only people that didn't have money, that were looking for money to eat, were only the Biafrans. So you can't be thinking about investing in shares when you don't have money to eat, when some of you are still going naked. So that was basically why a lot of our people had to go into commerce. They couldn't break into the corporate system because they weren't part and parcel of the corporate system. So companies like the Leventis, the UACs, all those big corporations were nationalized, and our people didn't have shares in those companies because as at that time, we were still begging for food. So people complain that doing this indigenization, and you say it's going to favor the entire Nigerians, at a time a certain demography we are still struggling to eat, was not right. So that's that. Not to talk about the abandoned property issue and all those kind of things. But the question is, should we come out every morning and we start weeping and we sat on our hand and start weeping that there was marginalization, there was marginalization, there was marginalization? Should we? No. But acknowledging the fact that there was marginalization and there is still marginalization, why I say is because that something happened. The Second World War ended 1945. How come the Israelis and the Jews all over the world are still prosecuting some of the Germans up till now? That's how it works. So what I'm saying is that we have to acknowledge the fact. Bob Marley said something in his iconic song, No Woman, No Cry. He said that in this great future, you cannot forget your past. So while we are thinking about the future of what Igbo land is going to be and what it can be, let us not forget our past, because that our past is our heritage. We didn't ask for it. It happened to us. And we cannot make any achievement in future without recognizing where we are coming from. And if we fail to recognize where we are coming from, we are bound to make that kind of mistake over and over and over again. That's why it's very important. My own is that Igbo people should abhor the Okonkwo syndrome. Chinua Achebe highlighted it, that the biggest problem of the Igbo man and the Igbo woman is the Okonkwo syndrome. You know that Ezonya Balam, Oge Benolum, if I have said it, it must happen like this. We also have to understand how to manage situations. Sometimes it goes like this, sometimes it goes like this, because the world is growing, the world is changing. We have to move away from that Okonkwo syndrome, because if not for the Okonkwo syndrome, some of the things that happened across Igbo land would have happened. But because we have that insistence, it must be like this, it must be like this, and we get so emotional about so many things that we don't want to hear from is this, we don't want to hear from this, and it causes us problems. So in my conclusion, we cannot forget what happened to us. We cannot forget our past, but we must not allow our past to stand in the way of our future. We have to bring the past to the present for the sake of this future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Kelechi Deka. The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence.
Noyes Healthy Living PAP is a strategic response to a critical problem, malnutrition. An innovative program kicked off on August 3, 2024, with free distributions across the 21 local government areas of Anambra State. This purely organic supplement is designed to combat malnutrition among Anambra children. Due to its high demand, the distribution has been stepped down to community levels and made available to residents in all 326 primary health care centers in Anambra State, free of charge. Noyes Healthy Living PAP, beating malnutrition in Anambra State.